To me, the whole world was right here. And this was home. I need to tell you about the bakery and my mother. My mother had been the pastry baker at Ballard's Inn for 18 years. And it was Eileen who said, "Why don't you do this for yourself?" And, of course, my mother was always a little bit timid, and because you've got to remember that she came to a small New England fishing village, the only Italian here. And that was a big thing. Now, some people were not nice to her. Others were lovely to her, and she never forgot them. It was Bella Payne, who lived not far from where we are right now, the other side of the church, who was very nice to her, and my mother never forgot it. The other lady that was very nice to her was Adrian Mitchell's grandmother, Miss Viney, and they were neighbors. And the neighbors that were in the neighborhood were also very nice to her, including my friend Nell that I told you about, where I spent so many days as a kid. And the Mitchells that were to the north of us, Mary Tinker and Mary Mitchell Tinker, was just lovely to me as a child, and Miss Fanny. And so my mother, as I say, was a little bit timid, but Eileen, of course, she was the pusher. And she said, "I think you should have you should be doing your own cooking." So she had, at that time, the offshore workshop, which was on Bushlot Hill. She said, "Why don't you just get a baker and have it up home and do your baking, and we'll sell it at the offshore workshop," which my mother did. There was a little porch on the north side of her house. They enclosed it with a door and windows, and she had her baker, which had 5 ovens. And she made her bread and her rolls. And I think that's about what she made the first years. And, of course, they sold bingo. So Eileen said, "I think you need to have a bakery." So they cast about to see, and now you've got to remember, at this time, things in the 50s were still not good on Block Island. Lots of places were closed up. And the Oddfellows Hall was one of them, because the Oddfellows had the association had really broken up. So my mother asked one of the men that was responsible for the building if she could rent the space. So she did. And she started in 1956, I think it was. And she, when Eileen was in Worcester, she had gone to a bakery there called, I can't remember the name of it, Hanscom's Kitchen. That's Hanscom's Kitchen in Worcester. And she thought it was very interesting because they had placed the oven and the work tables and everything where people could come in and watch you working. I mean, it was a concept that was very early for its time, because most people kept everything out of sight. People loved to go in the bakery. Now, it was backbreaking work, and my mother stayed right there at the bakery. She was home one night a week. She was closed on Sunday, so she came home on Saturday night. She had her long tables where she did her bread and her cookies and her cakes and everything. And then she had the oven there. And then in the front, she had a counter and her showcases where she had her baked goods. Everything, of course, was spotlessly clean, the glass shone, Everything had to be cleaned perfectly so that it looked nice, and everything was attractive. Well, mostly they liked to come in because they liked to see her cooking. That people were fascinated by that. She had marble on the tops of the table, which made it very easy. So a lot of people would come, just at that time when she opened the door and the smell would go down the street. I could see the smell going down the street of cinnamon and sugar, and hot bread. Oh, it was wonderful. And all her things, it was just like you had them at home. And it was very, very popular. But as I say, 18 hours a day. And then in the evening, many times she would ask me to come and make Toll House cookies or brownies or something, so that she'd have something to start the next day with. I didn't make cakes because that was my strong point. But I'll tell you the truth, if I never see another Toll House cookie, I must have made 12 million of them. But that was her venture, and she kept that up until she was well into her 70s, and then she could no longer do it. And Eileen and Diney, her partner, took over the space. By this time, they had purchased the building, and they bought it for $10,000. Can you imagine?